What did you make of this young, slightly shy, slightly chubby-looking Roy Keane arriving? Because he went on to obviously do remarkable things. Could you see the talent was there? Obviously, if he was a record transfer signing, it was obvious.
Yeah.
But he settled in quickly.
No, you could see it. I'd played against Roy a few times, when he was at Forest, and the boss and some of his staff were talking about him in the coach's room, and we were having a cup of tea, and they were discussing Roy, and the boss just wanted, other people's ideas, and because he was really wanting him.
Right.
And I just, over the cup of tea, I said to the boss, I've played against him, and he's one of the best young players I've played against in midfield. I says, I wouldn't even hesitate in signing him.
What did you like about him?
He had a bit of everything. Roy was quick. He was a good size. He was good in the air, good tackler, good vision with his passes. Could score a goal. So he had a little bit of everything.
Was he a touch shy when he arrived?
Yeah, he was quiet. But most young lads are.
That was a team of real men, tough men in that around that time at United as well.
Yeah, around about that time we had strong characters. Yeah, with Schmeichs and then Brucey and Polly, Dennis Irwin.
Yeah.
They all had their own peace of mind. Mark Hughes, Brian McClare. So it was like, and then you've even got the young lads like Giggsy, strong mentality, but quite quiet at that time. But you could see like a desire to win and a strong mentality, and that's what Roy had. So the only young one I've ever seen who wasn't that way was Incy, because he was a governor.
Big time Charlie.
Oh, he called himself the governor.
He strolled in.
But yeah, Incy was full of it and everything. But it was good because it was a little bit more of a different type of character.
Sure.
And that's what makes teams. People having different characteristics.
Obviously, Bryan Robson was still at the club, and I watched a documentary on him a few weeks back. And the esteem he's held in at Manchester United, could you sort of feel that presence when you first went to the club?
Obviously, I played against Robbo a few times when I was at Forest. So going there, when I was even growing up, the two midfielders I really admired as a kid growing up was Glenn Hoddle and Bryan Robson, for different reasons. Glenn Hoddle for his brilliant skill, and I followed Spurs. But Bryan Robson for what he'd done, and I thought he was just... the word I'd always think of Robbo, I think, great courage. In terms of getting in the box, picking up a lot of injuries, but dead brave, but ironically, then when I went to Man United, I remember like yesterday meeting Robbo for the first time, and I shook his hand, and it was one of them, and I literally were staring at each other, and the nature of the game, like I've said earlier, is I'm shaking his hand, but he knows I'm after his position, and we're looking, and we're going, yeah, but that's the game, and that's what you want at your club, competition, going, you're after my position. And Robbo stayed on another year or two, but of course he was picking up injuries. He was probably 33, 34 then. And that's the machine of Man United. Great player like Bryan Robson is going out, but I'm thinking, I've got to try and replace him and do my best.
What was he like to play against? You mentioned you did that a few times.
Yeah, Robbo. Yeah, very, very difficult, because he was tenacious, he was brave, but again, the great thing for me, I think what I learned more in my career is when I was playing against brilliant players, were against Ronnie Whelan or Bryan Robson, these players, Gaza, I think I'm learning when I'm playing against them because of their movement and when they were making runs or when they were dropping deep or whatever it was, or when I was watching them on the television. Conversations, I had great conversations with Bryan Robson, just sometimes it was over a few pints, and he'd be telling me about my game where I'd have to change. Because when I went to Man United, my game was probably a bit like when I was at Forest. I would just get forward and get on the end of things, hit and play or whatever it might be. But that was something, just from a conversation, I thought to myself, if I'm not going to listen to Bryan Robson, I might as well get out of the game. So it's snippets of information you get from great players.
Now, if Robson had known fear, he wouldn't get hurt so much. But he doesn't know it. It's something which you can't put into them, and something which you never want to knock out of them.